Good morning. Welcome to the Institute for the History of Religions of the Romanian Academy in Bucharest, founded in 2008. We are just entering the 19 years of existence in June next month. I am indeed honored and delighted to introduce to you Professor Jenny Butler from University College Cork in Ireland, who is also serving as the General Secretary of the European Association for the Study of Religions, which is our mother association across Europe, organizing the yearly conferences and congresses for the study of religions. 20 years ago, I had the pleasure to convene the first one in Bucharest, and now, together with the team from the Institute for the History of Religions, we are planning the next one, 3.5 times bigger than the first one, more diverse, more robust, more appealing to all scholars worldwide, with contributions from no less than 315 institutions across 6 continents, from 27 cities, and no less than 57 countries. But before launching this national colloquium on the religious history of Romania as the religious history of Europe, a part of which we are even formally since 2007, I would very much like to propose to you some insights from a forthcoming publication on the state of the art in doing history of religions in Romania in this national, European, and international context. For instance, just imagine that you may read one novel of a certain author without knowing that decades before or after, he or she wrote several ones. You may discover in a second step that that single writer, author, wrote several novels. You may discover that from the same generation, there are other writers writing their own novels. You may discover that 1 century before and 1 century after the said author, there are other novelists writing their novels. And you discover finally that there is a religious, that there is a literary history within this context that includes every one of them. They are all writing novels, you discover. You have several shelves of their literature, and you discover that in that language of their literature, there is a national literature across several centuries. And you start to study that history of literature across 2-3 centuries or more, or across millennia, if the linguistic resistance, the basic of the literary expression, the language, is indeed covering several millennia. Alternatively, I would propose to you to imagine the rather very similar case of someone listening to a song, to a lead, or to a trio, or to a quartet, or to a symphony. And you discover that that musician author authored not only one, but several symphonies. You discover that before him and after him, there are other authors, musicians, who composed symphonies. And you discover finally that there is something called history of music. You discover that all these well-gathered people in other shelves or of the same library are all authoring symphonies as expression, as within, as parts of a much larger, across, again, centuries or millennia, which finally and eventually become history of music. Just for the reason of the ancient rhetoric device of a triple example, I may add that you may discover you are living in your own personal time within the impersonal time of an epoch. And you start to learn that there are historical divisions of times called epochs or historical periods. And you start to understand them, to combine them, to see their following, to see their connections, to understand the linkages between, say, 19th century national movements across Central and Eastern Europe up to nowadays. So you discover that there is this dimension of a discipline, not only an objective dimension of an object of study, which is history itself. These triple introductory samples are perhaps, according to a forthcoming publication, the main comparanda for the study of religions in Romania. Because despite the eloquence of the sample called novel up to history of literature, despite the relevance of the comparandum, which is a sheet of music up to the history of music, beyond the comprehension that there are that time as a dimension beyond one single individual's may propose historical periods and up to the discipline of history, what we miss or what we missed before the foundation of the Institute for the History of Religions and the comparative exercise in collaborating with colleagues in Bucharest, in Romania, all over Europe and worldwide, religion wasn't at all similar to literature, to music, or to history. Within the panorama of the humanities, religion was the main silent, missing object of knowledge. Religion as novels, as symphonies, as histories, is a plural by its own definition. There is no single document, there is no single period in history where you can say religion was in the singular. Not a single week in the history of mankind where religion was in its own history as unique phenomenon, as the single one religion. Even saying religion means to compare the observer from the outside to some religions, as a certain religion itself. So from this point of view, all our plea within the Romanian Association for the History of Religions, which was launched 30 years ago, and which is the main proponent of the 22nd European Association for the Study of Religions Congress in Bucharest, and the regional conference of the International Association for the History of Religions, we may tentatively say that we indeed started to integrate the object religion among novels, symphonies, and history. Because this was the first time in the collective history of Romanian culture when a group, a guild of people, rather very young at that moment, tried to integrate the study of religions as some, perhaps also luminaries worldwide, Romanian-born scholars of religion tried to do. And one of them, 2 or 3 hours from now, 35 years ago, in a toilet at Divinity School at the University of Chicago in Illinois, was murdered, assassinated in very unclear circumstances, even despite the rather consistent and rather decent library of research concerning this assassination, which is a very unusual event in the history of the study of the academic study of religions. I may at this point mention that our distinguished colleague, Dr. Daniela Dumbrava, just published, with unpublished documents, a very thoughtful article on contributors platform about the origin of the move Culianu had from Iași to Bucharest, and especially from Bucharest to Italy, a country she lived in for, I think, 4 or 5 times more than Culianu did. So Daniela knows very well Bucharest and the intellectual storici delle religioni milieu in Italy. So I would recommend this new paper with unpublished documents from the archives of the Securitate, among others. But today we are not only collectively helping infuse the panorama of humanities in Romania with this rare, much neglected object, which is religion tout court. Because religion was dissolved by the researchers in Romanian past in several disciplines, as archaeology, as linguistics, as philologies of all sorts, as sociology, as anthropology. It's something like, it's something which added almost nothing. It was mentioned because if you are doing some fouille, you may find something which regularly you associate with a religious phenomenon. For instance, a statue of a divinity from the polytheistic Mediterranean. But you are not considering the systematic character of religion as an object in itself worth enough for being consecrated through a scholarly discipline. And this is the core task of doing academic study of religions. To put religions on the same level with novels, symphonies, and historical periods in the library of mankind. So, if I already mentioned twice mankind, I shall be more modest in the next 3 minutes or so by presenting you the program of this colloquium. We will first have the chance of introducing to you, first time in Bucharest, Professor Jenny Butler, who is not only the General Secretary of the ESR, the European Association, but also the President of the Irish Association for the Study of Religions. And she herself, she managed, and I can tell you we are in the same position for ESR in this respect, she organized the Cork ESR annual conference. So I would like a warm round of applause for Professor Butler, inviting her to deliver the keynote lecture of this colloquium. Thank you so much, Jenny.